All righty, welcome. Thanks for coming. It's great to see you today. This webinar is being brought to you by MCSC Women's Business Center. We're a nonprofit business center serving entrepreneurs in SLO, Kern, and now Monterey counties. Today's webinar is being sponsored by the SBA, Wells Fargo Bank, Pacific Premier Bank, and the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. Their generosity allows us to offer this webinar to you and free mentoring at no charge, so we appreciate them. Thank you, sponsors. We offer free one-on-one business consulting with professionals in finance, marketing, e-commerce, and management. Basically, if it's a business need, we can help you with it. We have a team of consultants ready to assist you with whatever you need. Simply register with us at mcscorp.org to get started. I'll put the registration link in the chat box shortly. I would like to thank Gina Cinardo for presenting today. Gina is a Women's Business Center success story. After completing her entrepreneurial training course, she launched her business and is a testament to the power of women entrepreneurs. She's the owner of Ginici Studios, a photography studio that specializes in headshots, personal branding, and commercial photography. Her passion is to tell a story through designs and images that effectively convey your business's message to your customers. She also helps businesses set up their starter websites in WordPress and develop a social media presence. This is part 2 of our series. Gina presented part 1 2 weeks ago. If you missed that, you can view it on our YouTube channel. I'll put that link in the chat box shortly as well. The first one was great. We got a lot of positive feedback, so you are in for a treat today. So before we get started, I just wanted to mention a few basic housekeeping items. Please limit your distractions and mute your phone. This class is webinar style, so your webcams are off and your microphone is muted. We'll be taking questions in the chat box. You can put them in whenever you think about it, and we'll get to them when it's appropriate. And I'll send you the recording link after it's processed. The recording link or link, either one, I will send it. All right, so we have a quick poll that we'd appreciate you taking so we can find out how you heard about us. I am going to go ahead and launch that poll now. Please take 30 seconds. All right, so without further ado, I hand you over to Gina.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to How to Improve Your Smartphone Photography. I'm so happy to be here to share with this for you because I know that most of you, actually, probably all of you, are business people and you're entrepreneurs. And so we are trying to figure out our marketing and to take better pictures for our marketing that's going to really put us in the game, so to speak. So really getting us out there and being visible and making a connection with our audience. That is the whole goal and point to this presentation. Last week, I really went over a lot of technical stuff, more on lighting and how to manipulate some of the lighting. I'm going to do a quick review on that today. However, we're going to talk more about how to take portraits today. And we're going to start by how to take a better selfie. And when I say selfie, I mean where you're actually holding your camera on the front end camera and then taking a picture of yourself with your arm extended. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more how to take a better self-portrait, which does require a little bit of help. So I noticed that Jeanette said that her husband is going to be the photographer. That is perfect. So make sure he's listening when I get to that part. Okay. So anyway, all right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start my presentation. Now, when I am in full screen, it's a little hard for me to use my mouse. So actually I need to escape a minute because I got to close some of these boxes so I can see my presentation. So make sure you tell me if anybody has any questions, Barbara, and I will be happy to answer them as I'm going along through my presentation. Okay,
You got it.
Welcome to Improve Your Smartphone Photography. So last week I kind of shared a little bit about this selfie that I took of myself, and I did use my phone, by the way, when I took this picture. I had some color issues with this one because we were talking a little bit about mixing like incandescent light and or fluorescence lights with daylight balanced lights. And so I ended up doing a little retouching, and I I don't have the after, the before in this one, but we're gonna just start right off. Well, I'm gonna again tell you a little bit about me. I've been a portrait photographer pretty much my whole life. My dad was a photographer who got me into photography. I got my degree in fine art photography, but even my bachelor's program, my BFA show was all on portraiture. And I took photographs of my friend. I was using a 2¼ film camera. Yes, I'm old, so I learned everything in film before the digital age, but I was a very techie girl. So I was working on computers at a reprographics center in college, which got me really good using Photoshop and everything. So I used Photoshop 1. Yes, I used the very first Photoshop, self-taught everything in regards to Adobe software. And so, you know, to this day, I still do everything digital. Even with my old photography, I've had most of my negative scan and everything. So I am just sort of a digital nerd, technical photography nerd, but I'm also very free flowing. So I feel like when you're representing your brand, you really want to represent it as you and be genuine and authentic. So especially when it comes to portraiture, this is one of the things that when you're trying to connect to an audience, you really want to be authentically you. And so I like to be very fluid. I photograph lots of people, and I shoot a lot of pictures to get just that right essence when I'm taking somebody's portrait. So I am going to talk a little bit about how we connect your brand to your audience, and then we're going to also go through a step-by-step on how to take a better selfie and even enhance some of your photos with some of the software options that you have on your phone directly, whether you have a iPhone or an Android or whatever, a Google phone. I mean, all of those have lots of features on their phone or on their phone camera, their camera phone. So make sure you learn those, because I'm not going to go into any specifics about the software on the smartphone because everybody's got a different kind of phone. Okay, so let's dive in, and we're going to start today a little bit about what image marketing is and where we're going to share it and how we're going to share it. So we're basically going to be showcasing and sharing your products. So last week was a little bit more about still photography and how to arrange some of your products and how to photograph it based on the lighting. So if you're doing a product, if that is your business, then that's what you're going to be using mostly to promote it, right? So photographs of your product, but you're also going to maybe illustrate your products and how they are used. You know, maybe you're going to have some models use it, or you're going to use it. If it's clothing or wardrobe, you're going to want to put it on somebody. And then you're obviously going to want to show your self-portrait. Self-portraits are critical. Even if you don't have a service business and you have a product, you are still the spokesperson for your business. So you still need to present yourself professionally and show your portrait, because people want to do business with people that they know what they look like. They're more trusting when people can actually see a picture. And then also to tell your brand and your personal brand stories. And then, of course, to share your personal stories. This is what image marketing is about. We don't want to too much of our business marketing with our personal, but pulling your personal stories in to your marketing strengthens your brand, because it makes you look more real and it makes you look more relatable. You know, if you're a foodie and you're also about a health and wellness, let's say you're a health and wellness coach, then you're certainly going to be sharing a lot more food related kinds of images. Could also be on the personal side. So just so you know, when you do take a self-portrait, you need a headshot because, well, not only just because people want to see what you look like, but if you don't give the right impression, even just having a nice self-portrait, then people are not only are not going to see you, but they're not going to know really what your intentions are. They might think that you're just sort of behind, or maybe you're new, or maybe you're afraid to show the world who you are. So keep in mind that even just not having a photo is going to give your audience a perception of you in some way. A bad photo, so if you put a bad quality photo up on your website, you might be perceived as just maybe starting out, or you're maybe a little careless. So really think about what you're going to be showing your audience. You really want to look professional. So a really good photo is going to obviously create more trust, and a really great photo is going to create more trust and make you more likable. Okay. All right. And of course, what we do share all these things is on your website, your social media, your blog, your newsletter, video platforms. And I did include that because even though we've been talking mostly about still photography and portraits, all this lighting techniques, everything is totally relatable to video. So if you wanted to do more video, then you're going to light yourself pretty much the same way. Okay, so just keep that in mind when we're going through, if you want to actually get into the video marketing, so to speak. So YouTube videos and stuff, which could be excellent and very lucrative for getting leads and new clients. And then of course, printed media. We can't forget that because some businesses may require to have things printed. And honestly, with the phones these days, the resolution is decent enough that you could take a picture and actually have it reproduced, in a print. I think it would be okay. It depends on, how good a picture it is. Of course, if you take a really good sharp picture, you edit it, you brighten it up, you do some little post-processing on it, then it could definitely be good enough to print. Okay, moving on. I went over some tips on, and one of the reasons why it's so important, and this is my favorite slide. I put this probably in most of my slides. So if you guys seen my presentation before, you had seen this slide before, or at least this statistic. So because it really only takes 50 milliseconds to form a first impression, and you can never take that first impression back. So when it comes to clients, obviously, if you have a big following, some people are going to come to you and really resonate towards you, and some are not going to be so attached to you. They're not going to be as engaging, but that's okay. You want the clients that really get you anyway. However, if you're not making the right impression, then you're probably pushing away more clients than you want to. You want to get as many as you can. Okay, and so this is going to give you the better edge on taking better images for all of your marketing. Okay, so we did a little bit about composition last week, and one of the first things we talked about was rule of thirds, and I didn't have time to finish the others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of these composition tips. Now this is not all of the composition out there. Like if you go to design or design school, or just even do a Google search on photography composition or art composition, there's many different kinds of composition. These are the ones I thought that would be most eye-catching for you guys to give you some ideas. So I'm not going to go in a ton of detail on all of this different composition. I really want you to just see what you could do with it. Okay, this is supposed to spark some ideas for you on how you can share your stories and your message and your portraits to give you a little bit more visibility and interest. Because whenever you photograph something, whatever it is, whether it's you're photographing yourself, whether you're photographing a product, whether you're photographing a story, you have to consider what the primary subject is, the main subject. In a self-portrait, obviously, it's going to be you. If you're doing a product, it's going to be the product. But if you're telling a story, let's say you're wanting to share with the world that you're full of compassion, and because you journal every morning, you're sharing a value, you're journaling, you're sharing a value, and you have a symbol, and the symbol is a heart. And so maybe the heart is the main subject, and you should draw a heart in a journal with a cup of coffee, whatever that may be. So you kind of get the point there. Okay, so the first one was rule of thirds. We did talk about this little bit last time at our last presentation. I want to go over this again because this is going to be the one I think most of you are going to be using, because it's really great for marketing, because it also gives you a space to add additional content, and it also allows you to draw the attention to what the primary subject is, as well as any additional messaging. So the rule of thirds basically means that you're going to add the primary subject into two converging lines on a grid of 9. So on a grid that divides your image space into 9 squares, you're going to converge the objects into one point, okay? Whether it's the top, the bottom, it doesn't really matter. Now, with this picture of Megan, some of you might know Megan, some of you don't. She is actually one of the Slow Women's Network consultants. Not Slow Women's Network, I'm sorry, the Women's Business Center consultants. The one on the left, I have her holding the cup of coffee and she's looking back into her laptop. So that's a great space right there to add content, because wherever the eyes are looking also is where your eyes are going to go. So the great thing about this picture is you're drawn compositionally into her face, and then where she's looking is where you're going to come back. So if she put another box there, there's plenty of room for content. You can add an additional message. Maybe it's a value statement. Whatever that may be, it's going to make it much more dynamic, illustrating that message, that value, which really strengthens the brand. And then, of course, on the other one where she's just in Zen mode, you know, you could still put any content that there's a value statement. And then the samples that I'm showing you from other marketers, there's Corona, obviously, and they add, you know, what Corona's value is. In this case, it's basically served with a cup. Anyway, and I don't know why it says congratulations Blackhawk. I took this obviously from the internet. So this ad is from Chicago. So, all right. So anyway, moving along. So we're going to just go over a couple of these to give you some ideas compositionally. Now, this one obviously is composition centered and symmetrical. So your eye is going to be drawn right into the middle. So if you can create some symmetry and have your composition completely centered within the image itself, then people are going to be drawn right in. So this could be your product, this could be you, whatever it is that's what your eye is going to go to. So on the one on the left, it's the girl in the triangle pyramid, and the one on the right, it's really the sunset area, and the right, the center, the reflection. It's beautiful, right? So that's a good way to think about maybe how you could tell a story using this type of composition. The other one is called foreground, interest, and depth. Now, this one is a really good one to narrow down the subject to a specific point. Now, the couple on the right, oh, by the way, as I'm going through all of these pictures, the images that have a border, a white border and a drop shadow, I took that photo. And then the ones that don't have a border is a stock image that I found online. The only reason why I'm telling you that is because when I get to the selfie part, it's incredibly embarrassing to tell you that you're going to see a lot of pictures of me. But I didn't know how else to give you all the examples of how, you know, anyway, you're going to see a lot of pictures of me. But in this case, I took this couple and we used the pumpkin as the primary interest. So yes, the subject is about the couple, but the primary subject is about the pumpkin. Because what we were going to do is we were going to put the date of they're engaged, the date of their wedding. It was going to be a save the date. We ended up not using this one because the pumpkin wasn't quite big enough. So, you know, that's okay. It still gives you the right idea of what I'm talking about. If it were something different, let's say it's just one person and they're holding their hand out and they're holding the product or whatever it is, or the message or a heart or a diamond or whatever it might be, then you can kind of get the same feel. It's the subject is about what's in focus and what's in the foreground. And then the secondary subject is what's behind them. So the one on the left is really about this beautiful swirly water hole, and then the mountain in the background. So your eye's drawn to what's in the foreground, that's in focus, that's crisper, that's telling the story. And then the secondary subject is the background. Okay, frame within a frame. This is a great way to just hone in the subject into a framed area. So the image on the left is about the house, that old barn, through the barn, and then the one on the right is about the person, obviously. So if it was a product, this could be a vase within a frame, or it could be your client within a frame, whatever, you know, so get some ideas there. This one I love is called leading lines. And this is where you want to bring the eye in right to the subject, into that leading into the subject with those leading lines. So the one on the left is about the door, and the one on the right obviously is about the girl. So this could also be a product. This could also be a symbol or a message. Now it's kind of funny because I was looking at this picture and it says Kaya on the background, and I can't see what the product is, if that's a coffee house, if it's a clothing line. Whoever took this picture was obviously photographing the girl, but it could also be about Kaya because it's pretty obvious. If I were doing a portrait, I would probably delete the Kaya, but it might be a clothing line, right? Because it's really, really clear. I don't know if it was an accident or not, but it's pretty crisp. So I kind of think it's intentional. So I'm going to just say it, but that's intentional. All right, the other one would be diagonals and triangles. And I am going into a little bit more detail about this at the end if we have time to go over some posing. Posing is going to be a lot about triangles is really good about posing. So we find that we're more interested in composition when there's a lot of lines. We're really used to seeing, you know, the horizon perfectly level. And so when you switch things up a little bit and you add more angles, it adds more interest and it makes your eye go to more areas of the photograph, okay? So I'm showing you an example of like a landscape image, which has the diagonal lines, and then a portrait that I took several years ago of all the diagonal lines. So when you're posing even yourself, think about those diagonals and those lines on your body, because if you're just standing straight, that is really the most uninteresting kind of portrait you could take. You want to create some interest by creating those diagonals, okay? I don't know if you could see my tiny little picture, but all right, so the last one is rule of odds, and I thought this one would be a good one to share because a lot of times we do tabletop storytelling, right? So we will put objects on a table, we'll photograph it with the phone facing down. We may have, you know, a cup of coffee, a journal, and a pen, okay? Or whatever the story may be. And so rule of odds is that we tend to look through things when the numbers are odd or in threes. So threes is really a good rule. So if you're actually going to compose something, you could use multiple versions of these compositions. You could put the main subject in the rule of thirds, and then you could put two other objects in there to add your eye, to add interest. And that is a good example of that would be this one of the cup of coffee and the two cookies, because that is so three objects that are bringing your eye in. It's a rule of thirds, but there's also two other objects that draw your eye into it. It has more interest, okay? All right, and that's all I'm going to talk about composition-wise. You can look up these compositions online to get some more ideas, but this will help you sort of compose your work a bit more interestingly than when you don't understand exactly where the subject should be. Okay, does anybody have any questions up to this point?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, great. So, so now we're going to talk about why take selfies. And I think this way about myself every time I take a selfie. You know, my biggest crutch is my chin. So I have to make sure that chin out. But this is the most adorable picture, and it's in all my presentations because how can you not love that? Okay. So obviously the main purpose for taking selfies is to share with friends and family. That's one of the main reasons why we do it. And a lot of times we do selfies with our friends. So it's also to tell your story, whether you're telling a personal story, whether you're telling a business story, and it's also to strengthen your personal brand. Now, I want to make a point that if you're a business owner and have a product or a company, or even if it's a service that's not directly, that you don't directly do with your clients, you could be a, let's say you're a moving company and you have a team and you have employees that help move, obviously, clients, then you're going to be telling stories about the entire brand, but you still need to also strengthen your personal brand. You are the person behind the business. So don't forget yourself, because people still want to know who you are. If you're not in directly the pictures that you're telling your brand story on, then at least have a nice portrait of yourself. But your personal brand, for somebody who's marketing themselves maybe as a coach or a realtor, or that's really out there, or even if it's a product that you did design and develop and you utilize it, because most of the time we are the experts at our business because we've struggled with something in the past as well. And I'm going to kind of get into that a little bit. So we're going to go into a little information on how to make the connection. Making the connection to your audience is the whole purpose to this. So when you're actually doing imagery, your brand itself is going to have an essence, okay? So one of the things you really want to do is you first of all really want to define your brand and what it stands for, okay? And if you have not seen any of my other presentations, then go to the MCSC YouTube page. I did one on how to develop a brilliant brand. And that gives you a little bit more information on how to really define and understand what your brand is. So you kind of need to know this before you start taking all these pictures, because it's going to help you communicate so much more. Because a lot of us still are at this stage where you're thinking, I don't even know what to say about my business. I don't know what people want to hear. I don't know. I mean, I'm taking a picture of me and my product, but what else am I supposed to say? Well, here's what you're going to say. You're going to photograph your persona, your essence. That's who you are. You're genuine. And it's not just a portrait of you looking in the camera and smiling. It's going to be you doing things. It's going to be you smiling, you being surprised. It's what makes you real and genuine. And that's why brand photography is so popular right now, because it's lifestyle. It's not necessarily editorial photography. Editorial photography is telling a very clear and specific story, and it's a little more staged. But even then, you can add some spark to it, some emotion to it. So when you add emotion to an image, whether it's your emotion, then that's where you're going to get the connection from your audience. So another thing you're going to want to photograph is your values and what your brand stands behind. So earlier I mentioned compassion. So what if your value is primarily compassion for those that you want to work with, for those people that you help, then how are you going to tell that story? In what ways are you going to tell that story? There's so many different ways that you can share what compassion means to you as one of your values. People are going to resonate with that. That's what's going to draw them in and find you interesting, and they're going to stand behind it, because people love to stand behind brands. They want to root for the brands that they like, because they admire those people, and they want to make the world a better place. And I think when people have a strong conviction about what their brand stands for and why they're doing what they do, then it's going to be not only more interesting, but much more trustworthy and valuable to them. So also the why in your journey. So a lot of us have gone in the past, like I said earlier, we have struggled with something in the past, and now we've superseded it. We have gone through it. We've become an expert at what it is we help people the most with. So people want to know what that journey is. Now, if it doesn't relate, let's say you decided to become a realtor and you just wanted to be your own boss. Well, you're still going to have some kind of journey. Even if you were a financial planner before you became a realtor, there's still a reason. There's still a why, and you just have to find the story. You have to define that story and understand this is where your passion lies. This is what draws you to work every day. And people want to know this story as well. And so I know what you're thinking. I know you guys are thinking, like, how do I photograph that? How do I take pictures and share that on social media? Well, it doesn't have to necessarily be you in your face every single time, but you're just going to have to get creative. Maybe your journey started off if it was a financial planner, for example, then you're showing somebody your financial split books or something like that. And my journey started here, and this is where, you're going to do it in bits. You're not going to tell the entire story in one post or one newsletter or one blog. You're going to do it in little bits as time goes on, and you're going to tell a bigger story from that point. Who knows? But still knowing what this is in advance is going to really make a huge difference in how you market to your audience. Knowing who your audience is, who you're speaking to, and what your story is going to make your brand voice just clear. So that's a really important thing. And then you want to also share your clients' pain and their struggles and what they are having difficulty with. So whether it's, so if you're a life coach and there's so many different kinds of life coaches. So some life coaches might struggle with, or might work with people who are just graduating from college and they're entering the work life, they're in corporate life or whatever it is. And so they might be more focused on helping that young mind transition from school to corporate, whatever. So what does that struggle look like? What are you narrating there? Who are you going to be taking pictures of? Is it going to be your client? Is it going to be your story? Because this also could be your past story. This could be your journey and your why, or whatever it may be. And then you might have another life coach over here is helping people in their 50s after a divorce. There's so many different niches you can really refine it to, but really understanding this is going to make great storytelling. And that's what's going to also draw in your clients, because that's where they're going to see the need for you, and you're more likely to get hired that way because they want that help. They need you. They absolutely need you. And then the other is how you work with clients. If you're a massage therapist, it's obvious. You're going to take pictures of how you are doing your own massage therapy. And I did a post a couple of weeks ago on whether you should use a stock photo or your photo. Well, a stock photo may illustrate somebody working on, a person, like from a massage therapist point of view. But if you're using yourself, it's going to be more genuine. It's more authentic. People see who you are. The story is about you. The words that are next to the picture is going to be much more poignant than a stock photo. So think about it that way too. And I know a lot of us use stock photos. I use stock photos too. There's a good place for them sometime. If you can't take your own picture, you still want to illustrate the story. It makes it much more interesting and a lot more memorable. But with you, it's even better. All right. Any questions up to this point? I'm just going to keep asking you, Barbara.
Okay. The answer is still no, but we will have some.
All right, great.
It's all very clear so far. You're doing great.
All right, great. And we will take a break, people. I know that this is a long presentation, but we'll take a break probably within another 20, 30 minutes or so, and let us take a quick bathroom break. Okay. Now, I mentioned this last time at my last presentation on defining your project. Well, I added one extra thing, and that is well, actually, we'll just go through these one. I added what your story is. So now, before I had what is your overall goals. And so when you're thinking about your goals, you want to, like, what is it you really want to get from, whether it's posting, whether it's on your social media, or it's on your website, or you're doing a newsletter campaign, whatever that is it to gain visibility? Is it to create engagement? Do you want people to actually talk back to you, to set up consultations? Do you want to get new leads from actually putting these images out there and posting, or do you want to get a sale? Okay. You might think, well, I just want to get a sale, but you're probably not going to do that for everyone. So think about it and disperse it out. Like it's either going to be about visibility. Most of them are going to be about visibility. Every one of them actually will be visibility. But some people are not going to be ready for your sales yet, but then some people are. So you have to ask, and you have to have that goal in mind when you're going to be sharing these posts or stories or whatever it is. Okay. And I'm trying to be very, very vague on where you're going to be putting these, because I don't know how, everybody's unique. I don't know how you're going to be marketing yourself. If you're just e-commerce and you're focused on that and maybe Instagram, then that's fine as long as you're consistent. So every business is different. And then you're going to figure out what your story is. So number one is, what is your goal? Number two is what your story is and what you want to tell. Okay. And then what are you photographing? Because now you can define, once you know what your story is, then you're going to figure out what you're, going to actually be photographing to tell that story. And what is the purpose of the photograph? So will it be for your website, blog, your social media? And you might want to do it for all, okay? So if you're photographing, excuse me, let's say you're photographing a product shot and you want that to be on your e-commerce and you're just going to photograph it against a white or black background, you might want to do two versions of it, right? You might want to do one that's on the white background for the e-commerce, and then you might want to do one version of it that is going to be more social media, some more lifestyle. Maybe somebody's holding it or using it or wearing it or whatever. So think about that whole story for that product and then where you're going to be putting it. So once you know where you're going to be putting it, do you need multiple perspectives? So whether it's a perspective of what it looks like being used, or what it looks like just by itself, some of the details. You might also want to change the orientation of how you're going to photograph it. So maybe in landscape mode or in portrait mode or horizontal and vertical, because if you're going to do stories on Instagram, sometimes the verticals work better than a landscape. So think about that. You might want to do both. And that way you have your marketing covered in this one story. So that's kind of where that goes. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about the lighting again. We went over this last week, so this is a review. This is nothing new. But anybody who's new to this meeting today will get a little bit of idea on what lighting refers to. So we talked a little bit about sunlight. So sunlight is going to give you direct lighting, or it's going to give you indirect lighting, which can be an umbrella with a shadow under it. It also can be a building with a shadow under it, or it can also be in your house with no other light sources on, but window light coming in. That's indirect light. And then it also could be a shadowed light due to a very, very cloudy day. Okay, not foggy day, cloudy day. There's a little difference. Clouds are a little bit more dense. Sometimes you get fog and dense, but it's going to be a dark day, basically. And then there's diffused light. In a diffused light situation, the light's either going to be coming through a window and is going to be diffused by a source such as a curtain, or it can be diffused with water, such as fog. So this morning we had fog out here, and it would have been actually a really nice day to go outside and take pictures because it's softer light. It's diffused by all the little water droplets, and so it just sort of disperses and it makes the light even. But on the curtain side, it's the same thing happens. The light is coming through the curtain and it's diffusing and actually dispersing the light. And I'm going to show you lots of examples in just a moment of me. So, and then another example would be a studio light. So in my case, I have a light box, and that's what I have on me right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn this and show you. Look, a light box. And so this does the same thing. This nylon grid, it's got two layers. I have two layers of nylon in here, and then I have the light source, and it just softens the light, and it falls on my face nicely. Okay, and what I have now, when you're talking about lights and temperature, we did talk a little bit about temperature. So daylight balanced lights are, any kind of studio lights in that case, are balanced to match daylight. So daylight temperature, sunlight temperature, I should say, is about 5,600 to 6,200 Kelvin. Okay, so it sounds, because it's a bigger number, that it's warmer, but it's actually cooler. It actually has a blue tone to it. And then your incandescence and artificial light is going to be warmer, greener, and then your daylight, and then your studio lights are going to be more balanced. Okay, and I'm not talking about flash or strobe today, but strobes, anything photography related equipment is pretty much balanced to match daylight. Okay, so if your incandescent lights are warmer, they're actually at a lower Kelvin. They're going to be about 2,500 Kelvin, or 3 to 3000 or 3500 Kelvin for your fluorescence. The great thing these days, we can actually go to Home Depot and we can buy the temperature we want. Now in the evenings, we want to have warmer light so that we're, no longer in the blue light zone. We want to calm our minds, and so don't flood your house with daylight bulbs, because that would be horrible in the evening. But sometimes in some cases when we're photographing things, if you don't have all the expensive studio equipment, you can certainly get away with a daylight balanced light bulb, fluorescent light bulb in your lamp, which is the other thing I have right here. So I have a lamp that is daylight balanced. Let's see if I can show you my lamp. Here's my lamp, and this has a daylight balanced bulb inside it lands, and I have a nice sheer white lamp cover on it, lamp shade as they call it. And so that also helps when I'm actually doing these Zoom calls on my desk, but when the light goes down, that light goes off because it's blue compared to all the other lamps that I have in my house. And it's really irritating. So don't ever mix lights in your house unless it's deliberate, because in this case, I would hate to have this light on at night. I turn it off right away because it's so blue and it's just so white. It's like I have the sun in the corner of my bedroom or in the corner of my office. Anyway, so just a review on color and temperature and the kinds of lights that we're going to be looking for. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to take the most flattering selfie. And the reason why I'm titling this flattering is because, well, you are a creator and you're creative. And when you're taking pictures of yourself, if you want deliberate distortion, that is your freedom to do whatever you want to get the right message across and tell the right story. You can still post really weird, odd, distorted, funky, especially if you're breaking some rules and doing some of the composition things, and be really unique and genuine without following the rules of taking the proper portrait of yourself. Okay, so this is what is this rule, or this formula I'm going to show you is going to basically show you how to take a better, more flattering picture of yourself in the moment. Okay, got it, people. All right, I did talk a little bit last week, or last couple weeks, at part 1 about the back and front facing camera. Okay, so the back facing camera is basically where you're going to take self-portraits, and the front facing camera is where you're going to take selfies, because you have to flip the camera around. The disadvantage to taking a selfie is that your front facing camera is not going to have the same application options that you're going to have in the back facing camera. You're actually going to have a better quality and you're going to have more features to take a better looking and better quality portrait that could almost match photographer's camera. If you're really comfortable with it and you can get to that point, you can take pictures that will almost look like you've been photographed by a professional photographer. It takes some time to get there, but you can do it. But it's also harder when you're using the back-facing camera because you can't hold the camera. You just can't. You can hand the camera to someone. In that case, if you really want it to be a great portrait, you still have to mentally think and compose it. You're not going to just hand the camera to someone and say, take my picture, and then expect it to look like a professional took it, because then they're in charge. So whether you're using a humanoid tripod to take your picture, or you're taking the picture yourself, that's the difference. But right now, what we're going to start with is how to take a better selfie, which is going to be the front camera. Okay. So step number one is going to be to clean your lens, because most of the time people don't realize that if you take lots of pictures and selfies and you're blurry, that your camera is probably dirty. And we hold these cameras on a daily basis. It goes everywhere. It's up against our face and on the counter. And so just right before you take the picture, get a nice soft cloth and take a picture, sorry. Clean your lens, and it's just that easy. You probably have some oil on there. This is an example of me. This is the start of all the crazy pictures you're going to see of me. This is so embarrassing. but oh, that's okay. I'm being the brand myself. I'm being my own brand. Okay, so clean your lens. That's step number 1. And I added that as a step because it's an important step, obviously, as you can see. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna always look for the best quality of light, and then we're going to face it. And it doesn't matter. Now, in this case, direct sunlight could be the light source that you're in, or open shade, or artificial light, or diffused light. So whatever scenario you're in, you're gonna find the best quality of light within that scenario, and then you're gonna face it. So if the light source is that light box, that's where I'm gonna face. That's what I'm actually gonna take my picture at. If it's the window, which my window is over here, if I step up towards the window, and then it's going to be the window, because in my situation right now, I have a lot of light coming in from the side here. I have all these windows, as you can see. I'm going to turn my computer right over here. And this is all indirect light. So it's indirect and somewhat diffused, but I don't have a diffuser or anything over my window. Only it's diffused because it's so far away that it's bouncing off of more subjects, and so, or more objects, and so it's kind of diffuses that way, but it's indirect shadow light, basically. All right, so I could do that scenario in my situation. I have no incandescents on. One of the rules that I probably didn't put in here in a slide is try not to mix your lights. So if you have a window light and you have a lamp on, then you're going to be yellow on one side and you're going to be bluer on the other side. So turn one of those off or use the incandescent light, however you want to do it. So let's talk about sunlight. So direct sunlight, and this is one thing I didn't talk about. The reason why I had to review the temperature thing again is because the sun is an interesting, it's an interesting light source, because depending on the conditions in the environment as well as the time of day is also going to, make an effect as to what the color temperature is when the sun is on you. Okay, so in this case, this picture was taken right before sunset, which is why it's so warm, right? When the sun is on the horizon, whether it's sunrise or sunset, it's farther away from us than when it's overhead. Okay, so if it's farther away, there's a lot more particles in the environment that are going to diffuse that light. And that's what makes it warm. That's what makes your sunset and your sunrises warm, is because there's more particles that it has to go through and filter through, which affects the color as well. So typically your sunlight, your sunset or your sunrise is going to be warmer. And this is one of our photographers' favorite light, right? This is called sweet light. We call this sweet light. Now, if you want to take portraits during sunrise or sunset, just make sure there's nothing in your way, because you still may get shadows. Now, this picture was taken right before the sun actually went down over the horizon. If it actually goes and you're in dawn or dusk, when it's already past the horizon, then it's even filtered more. There's some directional light here because my hair created a shadow over my eye. And so besides, if I'd had not such a fluffy hair day, it would have seen my picture, you would have seen my whole face. But if the sun was just even a little bit lower, it could have been a little bit more diffused and you would have gotten a little bit more light and fill in there. So think about that too. Usually but it's quick. So if you're going to take a picture of yourself or your friend or your whoever at sunset, then you're going to start photographing right when the sun is actually setting and it's the warmest, and then continue to go after it's actually past the horizon and see how much residual light you still have left. It might be even softer, but warmer. So it's a strange thing. That's why everybody considers the sunlight to be really warm. But in this case, it's just because of it's being filtered to. So in a way, this is kind of a diffused light situation. You also want to avoid high noon. So this is pictures. This is a picture I took of myself when it was literally above my head. So if you are in the sun, direct sun, and it's over your head, you're going to get these weird shadows under your nose and your chin. And if you have really deep set eyes, you might even go black in your eyes, but you can't see the eyes balls as much. You can't see your retina. You can't see the whites of your eyes. It's just a really harsh looking scenario. Luckily, when we're outside in daylight, it doesn't give you the reverse effect, like when you have a light directly under your chin is you know, the goth look, but it's still pretty harsh. So think about that when you're photographing in daylight itself. Don't do sunlight when it's above your head. Just go into a shadowy part. Okay, so just go into the shade. And then, okay, avoid high noon. And then if you are actually photographing in daylight, no matter where you are, it's a directional light. So the sun is going to be some point in the sky, and it's shining directly on you when you're in direct sunlight. So even though this one is not so bad, so when I say face the light, I'm totally facing the light. I'm not sure what time of day this was. I'm going to guess it was either 11 o'clock in the morning, maybe even earlier. It might have been like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, or later in the afternoon. It could have been maybe 3 or 4 o'clock. And I'm not even sure what time of year this was taken. This was several years ago. So whatever that time was, I put the phone there. So I'm facing the light, and then I put the phone up to take the picture, and the phone created a shadow. So you want to be really careful and avoid any kind of shadow that's on your face, because that's going to look really obvious and look more unprofessional if that's what you're trying to get as a professional, unless it's deliberate. Okay, you could do a heart or something like that. That might be kind of cool, but that would be kind of hard to maneuver, especially if you're going to hold the phone. Okay, so now we go into open shade. I obviously took these pictures on a single day, so I was thinking about this. I did a presentation several years ago on how to just take a better selfie. And I took these pictures so I could put this in my presentation. And so I probably did it throughout the day. I don't know if this was the same time as the one right before it. It could have been. And then I actually went into a shadow part and took the shade outside. And this was just from my house. This was my shadow, the house from the, I can't say it, the shadow from the house. So I was on the side of the house. The sun was probably a little lower in the horizon, so I'm guessing it was probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So notice that the light here is a lot bluer. And also notice that when you're outside, or this is actually not something you notice, I'm going to tell you, when you're outside and you're photographing next to grass or lots of greenery, or let's say you're photographing under an umbrella and the umbrella is green, or the umbrella is blue, or the umbrella is pink, those lights are going to influence, those colors are going to influence your picture. So I have taken pictures of myself and even sometimes clients where I'm utilizing the light bouncing around them in the shadow area, and I get some green reflected on them. So think about that a little bit. It's not as bad if you were to photograph, obviously, and just bright sunlight with a shadow on your face. But if you're really close to a lot of color, that's going to reflect on your face. So just keep that in mind in the future. If you think a building looks really cool and it's purple, it's going to affect the color a lot. But it's not necessarily a bad thing if you still photograph it properly. It could just be this part of the story is maybe this odd color. Who knows? All right. The other thing is when you're in open shade, especially if you're outside and you have trees, then you're going to have speckling on your face and on your body. So try to find the part of the shade that is the most shady, because you don't want those sparkling spots. It's going to get really, really hot. And if you're in a situation where you absolutely cannot get the sparkling off, you know, the little bits of light coming through the trees, then just position it so that it's not on the face. Like try to do it so that it's maybe on a shoulder. And I know I'm really trying to make it so that you could do this in any situation, any scenario in the moment. So if that's the case, then just find the shadiest spot. And if there's a little bit of speckling on you, make it on the body and not your face. Avoid speckled light. Okay, artificial light. So now in this situation, so this was I did this presentation several years ago, and you'll notice that the light looks like sunlight midday. Like it's all of the lights are these recessed lights within the ceiling, and so it's shining down on me. So it's not only much warmer and yellower, but it has almost the same effect as the sunlight because it's up above my head. And so I'm getting this long shadow with my chin and this long shadow with my nose and darkened eyes. So when you're in this situation where you're actually in artificial light, again, you want to find the best light source. So it might not have been necessarily the ceiling lights. It might be a lamp. Then you're going to actually face that lamp, and hopefully it doesn't have a colored lampshade on it because that will also affect it. White lampshades are the best. And then you're going to face it, and it's going to hopefully be somewhat diffused because of the shade, and then you're going to take a picture. That way would be much better than having the light source over your head, okay? So in a situation where you're at a party and you want to take selfies with friends, you can do the same thing. You're basically going to hold that phone. Let me just grab the phone. You're going to hold your phone and you're going to follow it. You're going to use the reverse camera, and you're going to follow it around and see where the best light is. That's the best way to take your selfies, just to really sort of experiment with it and look around and see what you like the best, what's the most diffused and soft or whatever. Now, if the light is slightly overhead, that's fine. In fact, this is a natural way. I have my light box over here actually quite high. And the reason why is because it does give me a slight shadow under my chin, but it's not as harsh as the sunlight. You know, it's really just about, I would say it's falling at least 2 to 3 inches above my eyebrow or my eye line. Okay. And this is going to go into, I'm going to go into a lot more detail about angle in just a moment. And so in that case, the direction is important, but you can still take a pretty good picture by facing it the right way. So if I were to be sitting here and I would take that selfie, I wouldn't be taking it down here because then I would get more shadow. I'd be taking it up there towards that light. Okay, moving on. Then we have diffused light. So this is my favorite form of light, is the soft diffused light. And you can see the huge difference just from this to this. Okay, it softens it, it fills in areas a little bit more. So it does kind of fill in under my chin. I don't have as much shadow there, but it makes everything softer. The reason why we love this light as photographers is because, well, it fills in the cracks. And us women, we like us to be soft. So if you're doing diffused light and you love that about yourself, make sure you're wearing the proper makeup, because that makes a difference a little bit as far as how you sculpt yourself. So you want to probably do a little heavier makeup because it's going to wash you out a little bit, but it's going to be really nice and beautiful and soft. So I don't probably think I had a lot of makeup on there. I could have used some contouring under my chin, but I still like this picture. I love the eyes. And once the great thing about this is you can see the nice catch light in my eyes. It really brightens up the look of it, and it makes it look sparkly, you know, in a lot of ways. So diffused lights in this case there was no artificial light here. I was just sitting right in front of my window, and I had a soft sheer curtain right in front of me. And this was indirect light, so the sun wasn't shining directly into the window. It was indirect light, and it was diffused by the curtain. Okay, and that's what I mean by curtain. But if you don't have a curtain, you can get a diffused look by using a scrim. I showed you this last week. You can, this scrim in general is a part of a set. So if you want to go to Amazon and look up reflectors, photography reflectors, you can buy these all-in-ones, which actually will open up from a figure 8, kind of like the sun shields we used to use in our cars. They kind of fold up in a figure 8. It does the same thing. So it's kind of compact. One side is a reflector, one side is black, one side will be silver, and then one side will be this sheer nylon, which is basically the same material as my light box. And you could just put it right in front of you, and that's your diffuser right there, and it would be really pretty. Another one is obviously a foggy or overcast day is a really good source of diffused light. But you have to know the timing on that, obviously. And it's going to be cooler and blue. So, you know, when you have these bluer pictures, you could add a little warmth to it when you're doing your post processing and you're doing in your app, and you could add a little bit of extra warm color or anything you need to add additional tone. And then another thing I didn't talk about at our first presentation in part 1 was bounced light. That is also a source of diffused light. And so if you have a light source, and I'm going to show you this light source right here. In fact, I'm going to just stop sharing so you can see me full screen. I have to escape to do this. Okay. So if you see this light right here, okay, this is called a continuous light. Now, whether this is a floodlight or a light bulb light or this or a strobe light. In my example I just showed you, it was a actual on-camera flash. It doesn't matter what the light source is as long as it's directional. And because I have this little reflector on it, if I point this at the ceiling, it's going to bounce off and it's going to give me light, but it's going to be directly overhead and it's going to give me the same effect. And that's granted that there's no other light source in the room. So let's say my room is black. I bounce this up at the ceiling, then it's going to bounce back at me and it's going to give me those long shadows like my daylight high noon picture I showed you. But if you're photographing it on a wall, or maybe you're photographing it or photographing somebody in front of the mirror or in front of a window, but you want a little soft fill light, you can actually add a little diffused light this way. So this is another way to get a really good diffused light without investing in a ton of extra lights or having, if you don't have the big window with the soft sheer curtains. So, you know, this is where you can get a little bit creative. Okay, does anybody have any questions at this point? As I see some in the chat, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're not questions. Jan just mentioned that she likes the open shade selfie with you in front of the bushes. That was a nice one.
Thank you. Yes, I know, because some of the others were not. Not that they were terrible, but.
Okay, so did you want to take a break now? Because it's
this would be a good time for a break. And then when we come back, we'll go through all the steps to finalize taking your selfie. How's that?
All righty, let's get going.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I am going to go ahead and share my screen again. Let's see. Okay, so we went over diffused light, using a scrim as our source of light, or the curtain, a scrim, a foggy day, or bounced light, and then finally dawn or dusk would be a good time to photograph. And this one was dawn, so I got up very early for that. Who wants to be photographing at dawn, really? But you know, you never know. If you're a morning person, you can do it. Okay, so step 1 was clean your lens. Step 2 was find the best quality of light. Step 3 is to choose the best camera angle. Okay, so we're going to talk about camera angle. And you know what? I just started to share, and now I want to stop share because I feel like if you see me bigger, it's going to be a little bit easier for you to understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm taking a selfie. The best angle to actually take your selfie is going to be just slightly above eye level. Okay, so let me kind of go back into frame. So I'm looking into the lens right here. My camera lens is right there. So it's just slightly above my eye level. Okay, now the thing about a selfie, and I am going to go into a little bit about posing in just a moment, is there's no way around having to hold it unless you can get one of these things and actually have this hold it, okay? But when you're out and about, we're just talking about doing a selfie in the moment, you're going to be using your hand, obviously. So there's always going to be this in the picture. So one of the things that you want to do in regards to like posing yourself in a selfie is to make sure that shoulder is relaxed. And if you want to make it look like it's not being held by an arm, then drop that shoulder. But other than that, like the posing could be a little bit frontal, a little bit to the side, but there's not much posing. So I will go into posing, but posing is not going to be for doing a selfie specifically. But this typically is the best camera angle. And you always want to keep that phone perpendicular to your face. Okay, and I'm going to show you lots of examples here in just a minute. But if I want to photograph towards that light box, like I was talking to you about earlier, then I'm going to keep that phone just above my eye level, and then I'm going to lift my chin, and I'm keeping that phone perpendicular to my face. Okay, now I'm going to show you reason why. So oops, I don't know where that went. Hold on a minute. Okay, that looks why. Okay, so this is the reason why. So when you move your camera below your chin, then you're going to create some distortion. Okay, so as soon as you take that camera, I know you're going to see a smaller version of me, but as soon as you take your camera below your chin, but my face is still the same way, but the angle of the camera is now different. The closest thing to the lens is going to be the biggest thing in the camera. Okay, so right here, this is the lens. The biggest thing in the camera is going to be my chin, and the smallest thing is going to be the top of my head. And if I do it the opposite way and I keep my face just straight and I'm looking up into the camera, well, yes, this is going to make your eyes bigger, but it's also going to make your chin really small. This may be an effect you want to do, but it will create distortion. It will also make your forehead larger. So you want to be really, really clear about what the lens is doing. This is going to help you not create those distortions that you don't want, the ones that are actually unflattering, which in this case I feel is terrible. However, I think it's kind of funny. I had this revelation last night because most people and most of you who are actually on your laptops right now, this is kind of the virtual look, because a lot of people are looking down into their laptops, and what you end up looking at is up their nose and a big chin and a small head. So I feel like people are kind of getting used to this look. I'm not saying it's bad, but keep in mind too, if you do a lot of Zoom stuff and you're working with clients in Zoom, then if you want to make a better impression on them too, you can follow all the same rules that I'm telling you about in regards to lighting, and also in regards to doing your virtual calls. Now I'm on a big laptop right now, and my lens is way high, which is kind of why I look really small. I like it, it's flattering, yeah, because it makes my body smaller, but I should actually be up a little higher, but I wanted to be really ergonomic. So this would be sort of the proper way. I'm kind of tripping off my head a little bit, but so you get the idea. So if you're using a laptop, instead of having it down here, you could actually lift it up and have it up here. You just put it on a couple of books or something like that. That would be a little bit more flattering anyway. So it all applies. It's all the same technology. You know, you have a lens, the lens is going to see you a specific way. And if you distort that lens based on what it's viewing, it's going to distort your face as well. Okay, so the most flattering, as you can see, is just above eye level. It makes your eyes open enough. It also gives you some definition in the chin, but it keeps your face flat. It actually allows you to show off the full shape, the right shape of your face. Avoid distortion. Okay, obviously nobody would do this to the extreme. I was trying to make a really good point, and this might be something that you do want to do as kind of a fun message. Maybe not this way, but The closest thing obviously is definitely my forehead, not my eyes in this case. So it looks ginormous, but I have done some very fun selfies. Okay. I have done the ones where I've been ahead and I've seen my tiny little feet, and it's really, really fun. So again, this is going to be all about your own preference and how you want to tell the story, but this is not going to be good for a flattering selfie. So avoid this extreme distortion. Okay. So the point, obviously, to follow your face is that even though the light source may be in an odd place, you can still take a pretty flattering selfie. So this, in this case, is still perpendicular. So the phone is still perpendicular with my eyes, just slightly above my eyes, perpendicular with my face. But this is the same place as the over the head lighting. And I'm going to go right back to show you this one. So this is the same place as this picture. This was artificial light. The huge lights, all the lights, recessed lighting up on the ceiling. I ended up just looking up and facing it. And voila, I got a really nice soft light, because even though it's still warm because it is incandescent, it actually filled my eyes. It looked pretty good. Yes, it makes my body, there is distortion, and because I'm going so high, you can see my arm, but it's actually a really good photo of my face. It shows the shape of my face. It's not distorted. You see my eyes are nice and bright. You can see even little flecks of my eyes. So I need lipstick though, but you know, that's just me being overly critical about not having enough makeup on right now. Or right then. But anyway, you get the idea. So this is what I mean by follow your face. So if you are in any lighting situation, you can always find a really decent light source, but you kind of have to be close to it. You have to be at the right angle, and you don't want to create the distortion. Okay. So step-by-step walkthrough is to look for the most beautiful light. Oh, wait a minute, sorry. Clean your lens, step one. Look for the most beautiful light. Raise the camera just above eye level. Move the camera as far away as you can with your arm and relax your shoulders. And then, you know, for some of us who are a little bit self-conscious about the chin, stretch that chin forward. So you're going to actually pull that chin away from your neck, which will create more of a shadow and length and hide the under chin stuff that we don't like to see. And then smile naturally and in the moment. Some people are really good at this and some people are not good at this. I understand, but you know, this is about you being visible these days. So you kind of have to get over your self-consciousness and say, hey, I do great work. I help people. This is what I'm about. This is me. This is my essence. Give it a real smile, feel it in your heart, and just let it come out. Be genuine, be authentic. You have to be in a fun space to be doing this. If you feel like you have to do this, it's a lot harder, but you certainly can do it very effectively if you're comfortable with yourself. And that's kind of what marketing is. And being a business owner in general is being very vulnerable. Using a lot of images of yourself, yeah, you're sharing the world about you, about your life, but you can still do it strategically. And you can still have fun with it. Okay, so that is step 4 also, is finding your joy. So your attitude matters. If you want to plan this ahead of time, so Jeanette, who said her husband was going to be the photographer, you know, when you plan out what you're going to be photographing, you can plan out your stories and stuff like that. If it's going to be the next day, you can prepare what you're going to wear and how you're going to dress and how you're going to do your makeup and hair. But you can also prepare by getting the right amount of sleep, drinking plenty of water, because if you drink plenty of water, you're hydrated and your skin texture is going to look a little better. And these are tips that I give my clients, people. So I want them to be really relaxed, because if they come rushed from one meeting to another meeting to another meeting, they're not going to look great in their photographs. You want to be relaxed. You want to be in the right headspace. You want to be feeling playful. If you want to be feeling sexy. And I know if you're a guy, that might not be the case, but hey, maybe sexy still works for you in that case too. But I know guys don't smile as much as women do. But if you're going to exude confidence, then don't think about it as being your smiley, cheesy self. Think about it as exuding that confidence and positiveness, but looking pleasant, looking likable. And so in that case, what I say is smile with your eyes or smile with your heart. If you don't want to show teeth, that's fine, but people tend to like you more when you show your big teeth. Okay. And then if you still have a hard time, you can laugh out loud, like really find something that makes you laugh and actually take the picture in the moment of a real laugh. That also makes it look real. That's how I photograph a lot of people too, because I'm kind of goofy. Well, kind of goofy. I have a feeling Barbara is rolling her eyes right now. Kind of goofy, but I can be pretty goofy.
No eye rolling here, Gina. Nothing but love.
So, but when I'm photographing, I'm very high energy. And so I get people to smile a lot and laugh a lot. And I take those pictures right in those middles of those laughs. I anticipate it. So it's about anticipating and prompting them so you know what the reaction's going to be so that you take a better picture because you're taking that second after that reaction that you want to get. So it takes practice to do that, people. I'm not saying that you're going to be able to do that, but you never know. If it's something that you get more comfortable doing this on yourself and being in front of the camera, then you can definitely get better at it. Okay, now we're going to talk about how to take a flattering self-portrait, and then I'm going to unshare a little bit, and I will show you a little bit of practical application and then some tips on posing for your self-portrait. So now we're talking about using the self-portrait. We're talking about, actually, that's the wrong slide. We're talking about using the back end camera, right? So we're talking about using this lens, not the selfie lens. We're talking about using this one. Well, this is the hard part. It's going to take a better picture. This has got better optics, and then the application has a lot more features. And one of the features that would really look really good is the portrait mode, which you can't do on a selfie. At least you can't do it on mine. I know everybody's got different software and different apps. I have an iPhone 7, so mine's kind of old. And so I can't use the portrait mode when I'm doing a selfie. And the portrait mode is great. I showed you some examples last week of the background blurred out. This is what's going to make it look like you're actually using a professional camera, because the optics on a professional lens is, depending on the quality of the lens, if you have a very large aperture, and I don't need to get into too much technicalities, but that's going to create a nice bokeh. And what that means is it's going to blur out your background, but it's going to keep your face in focus. And so the application on your phone, whether you're an iPhone or you're a Droid or whatever, should have a portrait feature on there. And if you use that, it's going to look really good. So Jeanette, this is what your husband wants to put as far as the option, put it in portrait mode. What happens when you put it in portrait mode is it kind of zooms in a little bit because you want to take a headshot. And we're going to talk a little bit about composing a headshot or just a selfie, well, a headshot. Because a selfie, it's like you're so close, it's really hard for you to really mess up. You're already very much in frame. But a lot of times when people take a self-portrait using this camera and they have it, let's say on a tripod, is they show too much. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how to compose yourself a little bit besides the posing, okay? Okay, and then there's the orientation. Again, when you're figuring out orientation, if you're going to do a horizontal of yourself as a portrait, do it in the rule of thirds, because if you just put yourself straight in the middle, unless of course you're doing the the centered and symmetrical, there might be something in your environment, then that could be very interesting. For the most part, try to orient yourself in rule of thirds. And then for a vertical portrait, you're going to give yourself a little headspace, and then you're going to try and crop yourself within your waistline to mid-bust up. A lot of times this is a very long orientation, so you might crop it a little bit, but that's what a headshot is. A headshot is basically from the waist up. You don't want to have too much sky, and you don't necessarily need feet because it's a headshot. You don't necessarily need to tell the story about your shoes unless it's about the shoes, okay? Okay, so posing 101. Oh no, I'm not going to do posing yet. We're going to stop share. Okay, so I am going to tip this up and stand. Yay, hi. Let me get my chair out of the way. Okay, so if you don't have a tripod, I suggest you invest in one. And this was not an expensive tripod. I have multiple tripods, but this is my super lightweight one, but it's probably a little better quality than some of the cheapy ones. This was probably $100, so it's not, it's really lightweight, but it's still pretty sturdy, and it's really good quality. But at the same time, it's still too lightweight for some of the projects that I do. But for travel, this one is so ideal, and it's so lightweight that I could quite literally put the legs together and use it as a selfie stick, because I feel like it's that lightweight. So I could technically do this. But, you know, it's a little bit more cumbersome. I do like the idea of using the combination selfie stick and tripod. Just it gives you a little bit more versatility. But one of the features I do like about this is you can put the mount, so I'll show you up close. You can put the mount for the tripod right on the phone. And then it has, there's the mount itself. It has what's called a quick release. And so I don't have to worry about doing it when it's on the phone. I just stick it right in that hole. You can get a little closer. Stick it right in the hole and then flip it closed. Okay, and then it's in position. And then this has a ball head. So I can just go quickly and easily from horizontal or from landscape to vertical. So it's super easy. Okay, so now if I'm taking a selfie, I'm taking the front camera, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead, excuse me, take a picture at just above eye level. And I'm gonna turn my light source towards me. And I'm using the front end camera. And now when you're doing a selfie and you do have it like this, and you're using the front end camera and you're by yourself, I would suggest using the timer, okay? Again, you're gonna have to figure out your phone and the apps for your phone and how to set up the timer, but this will give you a chance to push the button and then position yourself and you pose yourself, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and take a picture at 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Okay, not bad. I will show you these pictures in just a moment if we have time. Now, if I want to use the front end camera, I have to switch it around. And this is where it gets challenging because we can't see ourselves. So this is where you're going to have to ask for help. Or the most ideal scenario might be to have a mirror here so that you can see yourself and you can see the back end camera and what you're looking at, okay? In this case, I'm gonna just wing it. I'm gonna put it on the front end camera and I'm gonna put it in portrait mode, okay? So I may be uncentered here. I still have the timer on. So this will give me a chance to hit portrait, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I have no idea what I took. I'm gonna take a couple just in case. I might not be in the right position here, but all right. As you can see, I'm kind of blind. Yes, a blind photographer, you want to hear that, right? No, I actually can see very well in my camera, don't worry. Okay. Let's see, got there. Not bad. All right, one more for good luck. I'm gonna do it without my glasses. Okay. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea. Obviously, a mirror would be better, or if you have somebody there, can have you centered, and then make sure that your head is the right position, and that would be better. The camera is just above, it's actually pretty much right at eye level. I wouldn't mind it a little bit higher, but that's okay for the example. And then if you do the horizontal again, you're gonna wanna probably have somebody position you. Rule of thirds would be best. Just because it's harder to market yourself when you're right in the middle. You want to have that space for extra content. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is some posing. And I'm going to show you some examples in a moment, but I want to show you a little bit about the body and how we distort our body a little bit as well in some of these pictures. I'm trying to get this chair out of the way so I have more space. Okay, so you can see my full body. All right, so if we're doing a selfie and we're just straight ahead, we're gonna look like a box. There's not much interest here. So number one is to make sure that you're not, fully square on. You're gonna be a little bit on the side. Now, everybody's body shape is different, and I am talking to the ladies here as well as the men, but obviously a man's gonna want to be broader up on top and a woman's gonna wanna be smaller, but it depends on your body shape. I'm actually very much an inverted triangle. So I tend to be broader in the shoulders and smaller in the waist, but ideally we don't want to be straight on. We want to add some curve a little bit. So a lot of times what I tell people to do is weight themselves on their back foot. So if I'm not straight ahead, obviously I'm turning at an angle, I'm going to weight myself on my back foot and push my hip back. What's that going to do? It's going to make my hip smaller. See, forward, it's bigger. Backward, it's smaller. This feels like I'm teaching a dance, but I'm not. Okay, so forward is bigger, backward is smaller. So if you want to make this area smaller, ladies, then you're gonna wanna put your back foot, weight yourself on the back and push that part of your body back. This also helps you sort of elongate your neck a little bit and pull your chin forward. So this is a really good standard pose for everybody to just that's randomly doing a selfie, or if somebody's taking a picture and you're in public, to push your hip back in that way. And then if you add a hand on your hip, what's going to happen is you're going to create a waistline. Okay. Now this is a really blousey blouse, but you also create space. And what am I also creating? I'm creating a triangle. Okay. So you're creating space right here, and that's making your waist a little bit smaller. You can even bring that hand forward and say, this is the waist, and that's also going to create more of a waistline. Or you can drop this arm. Now it's really hard to see because I am wearing black and I have something dark behind me. So let me move to the lighter area, see if I can show you this. Okay, so if my arm is straight and you have it just laying on the side, conforming it to your body is really, really good, but you can also pull that elbow back, okay? And like I said, it's really hard to say because I'm wearing black today. Sorry about that, but that's what I wanted to do. So you're pulling that elbow back is also gonna pull in the waistline and create a smaller area right here, okay? And now I'm wearing something fitted too. I feel like I'm wearing the right outfit for my body type. Pam, you're gonna be proud of me. She's on the call. She is my style consultant, by the way. Okay, so anyway, fuller skirt, white skirt, dark top is really good for my body shape. So if you're really that critical, know your body shape and how you dress for it, because that's also going to make your selfie look a lot better. So these are going to be some general poses. So angles, and creating space is also going to create more, not only more triangles, but more interest. So if I'm sitting down, I can have my legs crossed so you can see more leg. Woohoo, I'm showing leg, but you know what I mean. Maybe I'm wearing pants. You can totally add more angles and more curvaceousness to the pose itself, which gives it a lot more interest than this. Okay, so on that note, does anybody have any questions before I come back? Because somebody
Yes.
might, okay.
Yes, and nice job, Pam, on the stylist. Somebody said, where do you get the phone mount holder thingy, which is the best question I've seen in a long time, because that's the way we all refer to them, right? The mount holder thingy.
Okay, us photographers call it a quick release. So this was actually part of the tripod. So you're gonna have to probably look for a tripod that has this kind of mount on it. I don't know if you can see how is that big hole in there? So it fits the big hole, and that's called a quick release because you can just stick it in the hole and clamp it down without having to screw the camera, into that or clamp, so it's a little bit easier. So you're gonna have to find a tripod. This is called a Manfrotto. I actually didn't buy this on Amazon. I went to Best Buy and bought it directly out of Best Buy because I was going on a trip and I needed something quick that was lightweight and would fit in my suitcase. So I just decided to make the investment, and it was about $100. So this was not a cheapy one, but it's still super lightweight and it's not heavy duty. So for some of my other projects, I wouldn't suggest something like this. because on a windy day, it's going to go like this. And but for this purpose, this is a great, I think, a great product. Now, you're going to find different kinds of tripods, all different stuff. They might have more gadgets. But just think about it. And why I like the ball head as well is because it's a quick lock, but you can move it into multiple positions and get the right angle. You can look and see my pictures. Okay, so that's what I suggest. Now, if you already have a tripod, unless it has the quick release mount on the tripod itself, it's still okay. You can still get these things, and it might have a screw on the outside, and then you would have to just screw this whole thing in on the camera. So it might be harder, but it still works. It just depends on what you already have. If you don't have any tripod, then look for this style. And then this, again, is lightweight enough that you could use it as a selfie stick, technically.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share again, but I'm also going to see if I can put these pictures in my my computer. So I don't know about you guys and how you edit your pictures, and I know we're kind of coming up to the end here. So, but when you actually import your pictures, or some of you may not import pictures, some of you may quite literally just share all of your pictures and do all of your editing from your phone. Some of you might also install your pictures in your camera or in your computer, whether it's your laptop or a desktop. I actually have mine plugged in, so I just plug mine in, and my iPhoto automatically opens. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share what I'm seeing right now. Let me see. Okay. Yes, ignore this guy over here on the left. I don't know how to delete that picture. So as you can see, these are the pictures that I just took. The ones that I took with the back-facing camera isn't there. I don't like them as well because I couldn't see me. So this is where it's critical that you're going to need another set of eyes or a mirror to help you pose and position yourself for that picture. Otherwise, the quality is going to still be better. And I don't know if you guys remember, but last week I talked to you about tapping on the picture. If you tap right where you want the focus to be, so if you're using the back-end camera, back-facing camera, this side, right, not the selfie side, then whoever is looking at it, if you do have a helper, then once you're in position and they say you look good, they can tap you, and that's going to actually create the right exposure on your face. Now that's my phone or iPhone. An Android is going to be slightly different. I think that there is a toggle. So I think that when you look at the picture on an Android, there might be a toggle that will allow you to adjust the exposure and maybe a place to focus. You have to learn your app. So I wish I could tell everybody how to use their app, but I cannot. So that's an important thing to do if you really also want to get better at using your smartphone for photography. So when I import my pictures into my computer, at least with a Mac, all the software on my phone is also the same on my computer. In fact, I think I have more options in my computer, which is awesome because, well, for one, I can do some editing on a bigger screen and it makes it easier for me to edit. And this is how I'm used to editing. I am a photographer, so I prefer to do my edits on my computer as opposed to my phone, but sometimes it's easier to just do the quick tweaks on the phone and then share directly on the phone. If you do more stuff on your computer, you can have more time. If you use Canva, you can upload your picture to Canva and then you can add some other graphics to your picture. And so that would actually create an even better story. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Some people might feel more comfortable using a desktop. Some people are fine and more comfortable using a phone. You have to find your own specifics. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take a couple of pictures and I'm going to import them. Okay, so as you can see, this is the portrait mode, and I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'm going to actually enlarge this one. So if you see, I didn't use the portrait mode on this one, and I'm obviously not in the right position because I couldn't see, but the background is really, really crisp and clear. I don't love it. Oh, well, that's interesting. Okay, hold on, I'm sorry. My camera went crazy there for a minute. All right, well, you get the point. Let's just go back here. There we go. Okay, so if I open this one, let's see. So if I open this one, then I use the portrait mode. I actually blurred out that background and it looks a little bit better. I don't love the picture of me. I needed to stretch my chin a little bit more, but it's not bad. I mean, it's certainly better. I would want to take a lot more pictures. You're going to probably take a lot of pictures to get the right picture. And that's okay, because you can always go back and delete the ones you hate. And so you're not taking up tons of space, but just know you're not going to probably get the best picture with 1 or 2 shots. You're going to probably need to take a couple. But the nice thing is with this software, I can go ahead and directly edit. And I think I need to actually, let's see. Oh, I think the only way I could edit is to actually do it this way. So I can hit edit. And as you can see, I have all the same features here that I would on my phone. And there's tons of features here. And now let me show you. I will show you an example of what I did for one of my other poses. And I think it came out great. I have almost the same amount of features here. Well, I shouldn't say the same amount, but it's not equivalent to Photoshop, but it's definitely comparable. I mean, and this is just iPhoto. This is straight iPhoto. And so on the computer or on your camera, you have all of these options to adjust the picture. You can add color, you can make it black and white, you can do retouching on them now, you can get rid of red eye, white balance, curves. And I'm not going to explain all of these in detail because they all do their own thing, but the only way you're going to know is to just put it in there and then, you know, play with the white balance. So if you took a picture right next to a really orange incandescent light, then you can add a little bit more blue. Or because I took this one with the daylight balance light, I can add a little bit more warmth to it. So be creative in that way. Do what you like, because you know what your eyes like, what looks professional, or you can look at other poses and pictures that people are doing and model that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation again. And I'm going to just confirm. Barbara, can we see everything okay? Because I know I'm toggling back and forth between different software.
Yes, we're good. And actually, Anupa wanted to know what application you were using.
So that application was iPhoto. So that was the direct, that was the, that's actually the iCamera or the iPhoto, the iPhone and Mac's software for the camera. Okay, so if you're using an Android, the Android's app, if you plug that into your computer, it probably has, I'm not sure what it opens. I think it's, does anybody know what that software is if you plug it into your computer? If you're using a PC or, I don't know. So there is something comparable. They're all comparable. Everybody wants to be similar. So there's going to be some kind of editing. And if not, then you can certainly download other applications. So you can look for something. You can use Photoshop even if you wanted to use Photoshop elements to do this kind of extra retouching and design work. Okay. All right, so hopefully that answers, you have an Android and Windows. So you'll have to do some experimentation, plug it into your camera, see what opens up or what, I mean, sometimes you might not have it set to open up. You might have to connect the camera to the app. So do some searching on Google and see if you can find something that how to import photos on your computer, on your Windows computer. Okay, so real quick on the Posing 101, I'm just gonna show you again a little bit of the samples I showed you from shrinking the hips, using it closer to the camera and then away from the camera. And again, you know, body shape is important too. You might actually want your hips to look bigger, but when you kind of pull yourself back, you're also pulling your chest back. And anyway, so it's better to have your hips back. And then adding the faux waist, was also something that we talked about. And notice that she just dipped one hip. That also creates a little bit more of an S curve in her body, which adds a lot more interest than just straight on and square. And then down with the arms, again with the arms, if you
Gina,
keep
do you
them,
mean to be
yes.
sharing your screen with us right now?
Oh, I'm so sorry. See, that's why I asked you if you could see it. Okay, let me go back.
That's why I'm here.
Thank you. That's good. Okay, how about now?
So much better. Posing 101. There you go.
Yay! So let's go back. So the shrink hips, front and back, which I showed you. And then the faux waist. So here she dipped her hip, which creates a little bit more of an S curve. So instead of just straight on, she's created more interest and more waist. Down arms. And so here she's pulled her arms back and pulled her elbows in towards her waist, which gives her more of a waistline. Now, and obviously if the hand is up on the hips too, you're going to create more angles and more triangles. And then the other one is to create these triangles and much more interest by pulling the leg over certain legs, adding your arm up. Those are the triangles that we want. That makes it much more interesting. It makes it actually softer. It makes your eye follow through and then look at the image more. So you're telling more of a story about the subject here. So I didn't want to go into a ton of detail about posing because, you know, this is a long presentation if we would do that. So, and I want to basically wrap things up soon and open up for more questions. Okay. So enhancing the image, I showed you the app that I used, and keep in mind, I did not use this in Photoshop. I did no photo editing or anything in Photoshop. Straight from the camera into my iPhoto, and I did some touch ups. So the left one is the one straight out of camera. The one to the right of that, I used like a warm brilliance, and then I think the center one was dramatic. So these are just the basic filters that the app shows you, and I know all apps have this, whatever phone you're using. And then the one on the far right, I adjusted for my own personal preference, because even though on the left side, the picture on the left is what I took, and I took it with my favorite scenario, which was in front of my window. This was in my other house, but it was a window with the soft sheer curtain in front of it. It's a little on the warmer side, and that's because my curtain is also a little bit old. So it was a little bit yellowed and dingied. So I kind of felt like it was just a little too yellow. So on the right, the one on the far right, I took a little bit of that yellow out and desaturated it. And I think I made it a little bit sharper as well as creamier. But other than that, I didn't do any other editing or retouching. I just adjusted more or less the balance and the color a little bit. Now, see, this is one of my favorite selfies. And even though I was, doing it as a selfie, you can still see my arm out. I feel like my arm is still a little bit on the large side, but it still works because it draws you right into my face. Like you said, you can't really pose much when you're doing a selfie, but I did turn my body angle out a little bit more and then, did the whole camera above the eye. So that one is one of my favorite flattering selfies, which I think everybody can do. This is a total doable thing. And I would totally post this on social media. In fact, I might just post this today because why not? It kind of looks cool to have all these different versions of it. Anyway, so that is who I am. And believe it or not, I have lots of questions. I have lots of time for questions if you have any additional questions. But what I can do to help you is if you are actually, part of the Women's Business Center, you can certainly have me help you with your marketing. I can give you more advice on a specific project for your photography if you want to do that. I also offer any branding advice through MCSC. And of course, if you're interested in getting professional photography, I am here for you as well. In fact, this picture right here is not a selfie. This was actually taken by another local photographer, Andrea Fine Photography. And I love this portrait of me. She did a fabulous job because we love to use each other's work. I love it. So that is that. So if you have a specific problem that you've had, what problems have people had in the past that they could ask questions about, to maybe solve. Does anybody have any other additional questions? I actually ended right on time today. I'm so proud of myself.
Girl, you are early.
I know, and this is good because I'm like, oh my God, I have a lot of content here and I didn't want to rush through it. Hopefully I didn't rush through it too much,
No,
but
great. So for those of you who are wondering how to work with a consultant like Gina at no charge through MCSC, all you need to do is go to our website and click on the button that says request a consultation. It's on the right-hand side. That's all you need to do, and then we can get you set up with her. So while I'm waiting for people who might have some questions to pop in their questions, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Working my technology here. Here we go. Okay, so there we are. So I can't see the chat box now, so if somebody pops one in, Gina, go ahead and let me know. So I just want to let you guys know some upcoming webinars that we have. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much, Gina. We are all going to look very fabulous. Our products will look fabulous, our websites will look fabulous, and it will be because of you. So thank you. Let's see. So we have on the 13th, we have managing your money, budgeting and saving strategies. We could all use that. And then on the 24th, we have make the sale, how to build your customer base without losing friends. That's presented by Nis, and she has a great way of helping you increase your sales and capture more clients without actually selling. So that's a really good one. And then on the 30th, we have Ascent. Ascent is the online program that the SBA has created specifically for women entrepreneurs who want to grow their business. It's online, so it's available 24/7. It has a variety of journeys and different success stories, and it's a really useful program. So while with MCSC, you can work with a person on the SBA website for the Ascent program, you can get help anytime you need it. If you're up in the middle of the night and you got a great idea, you can go there to find out more. So do we have any more questions that I can't see?
no, you don't. But I do want to add that Nissa is really brilliant about how she works with sales. So I definitely recommend watching that one. They actually all look really good. I take advantage, even as a consultant, with all of these presentations. I always try to learn more and more every time I can, because I'm constantly becoming a better business owner. It's a work in progress. Nobody is ever going to be 100% perfect. So, this is the time to do it. And especially now that we've been doing, this was really a good launch for the Women's Business Center when COVID happened, because when everything went virtual, it gave all of the potential business owners, people starting businesses, an awesome resource. So take advantage of it, people. It's great. In fact, the fact that you're here, you are, and hats off to you. I love that. So anyway, I don't think anybody has any other questions. They're either their brain is full, but they're going to go take a selfie, and then they're going to say, oh, I wish I had asked Gina about that question, but that's okay.
You know what? I am happy to see your selfies. If you want to send your selfies, I'm going to send you all a follow-up email with the recording link. Send me your selfies. I'd love to see them. I'll share them with Gina. Thank you all.
Yeah, in fact, if you do post one today, you should tag us here. I'm going to actually type this in and send it to the group. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, balance. Hashtag, I think it's MCSC, right? MCSC Corp.
Yeah.
Oops.
.org.
Well, MCSC would be the hashtag. For me, you can do MCSC Corp or Ginici Studios. Post your pictures today and say, hey, I learned a lot from the MCSC presentation.
We love your feedback. Thank you all for coming. Have a lovely day. Bye.